but I try to wait. All right, so the stream is hot.
And will continue to enhance
I can go live.
so as to serve you better. Call now. Get connected. 870-246-2611. That's 870-246-2611. Call, click, or come by. MitchellFuneralServices.com.
So let's do a YouTube.
Let's walk
I thought
through
I
this
posted
together.
it from my live, but I didn't.
870-246-2611. It's quality you can appreciate and service you can depend on at Mitchell Funeral Home.
Fill your home for the holidays.
So that's the live feed right now for the
Save for
YouTube.
every room in your home. Package deals just in time for the holidays. Our first bundle starting at $5.98. Perfect for a dorm room.
So yesterday I actually had a white supremacist on trying to
2611. Call, click, or come by. Mitchell Funeral Services.com.
So let's do a YouTube.
Special pricing going on now
Because
to the end of the year. Celebrate this holiday season with something.
So I got 30 seconds.
Mattress and more. 3901 South University in Little Rock.
Hi, I'm attorney Theodore Thompson from the Thompson Law Firm, and I want to help with your legal matters. Whether it's criminal defense, bankruptcy, personal injury, or family law, I want to help you. I can be reached at 501-503-5095. Don't face your legal issues alone. You need an attorney whose primary objective is to provide you with the best legal representation. Our office address is 415 North McKinley, Suite 710 in Little Rock. I'm attorney Theodore Thompson, and I want to provide you with the best legal representation.
The views and opinions expressed today on Black Focus Radio are not the views and opinions of the station, its management, or its advertisers. Now, let's get ready to focus on our issues, our solutions, using our voices on Black Focus Radio.
Welcome to Black Focus, the show designed
So I do all this stuff before the show starts.
where we focus on our issues, developing our solutions, using our voices. Central Arkansas, surrounding areas, and the nation. Get ready. Black Focus starts right now. Phone lines open at 855-525-5683. So here's your host, David W. Coleman and Robert Webb.
Trying to get the feed up. Why is it not going? All right, let me do this. All right, what's happening? What's happening? What's happening? That's right, I'm here. It's Dave Coleman on Black Focus Radio. It's the Tuesday edition. I'll have the Facebook feed up in just a moment, y'all. I know y'all get an attitude when I'm late, but I'm going to blame everything on the interns. I've got interns in the office, so I'm trying to get organized. I'm trying to educate and do all that stuff as well. So y'all just give me a moment. I'll have the Facebook feed up. Y'all act like y'all can't go out to the website and download the app. That's joinetradio.com, joinetradio.com, and click on your prospective app store and download the app, and that way you can carry me anywhere you want to go. As I tell you often, that I have people listening to this show all over the country, and some of them will catch the Facebook live feed. Others will just download the app. After all, there's some pretty good music going on. If you like gospel music, the base programming for this show is gospel music. So you can certainly get an inspiration or something. Can you not? All right. So the live feed is up, so y'all can shut up now. By the way, you'll see people in the background right now. That's Clayton. He doesn't know he's on my feed. He is one of our interns, and is Jemiah. And we also have Jemiah here. They will be here for 6 weeks. You can come on over and lean over, and so that's Jemiah. They'll be here for 6 weeks. I don't know if they'll be able to put up with me for 6 weeks, or I can put up with them for 6 weeks, but we'll see. We're going to teach them everything we can about radio. Now, neither one of them are planning to go into the radio business, but there's an old saying about this business, is that once it gets in your blood, it kind of stays in your blood. So I'm teaching them the techniques, the technical part of it, and I'm teaching them the delivery part of it. And the key is being able to put the two together. So there's Bob Mueller, who is the news director out of, at least at one point, News Channel 5 out of Nashville. So Bob, one of these two interns I have here might be asking you for a job one of these days, so that might be pretty cool as well. By the way, today the tease, what we're going to talk about, and we got a lot of stuff to talk about. Did you hear the one about the white terrorists? Federal authorities continue to ignore. Did y'all hear that? Y'all do know that there was a terrorist act that took place yesterday, right? Hadn't heard anything about it on the news, have you? I know. We're going to talk about that. White men poisoned thousands in Flint and will face no charges. You all remember the Flint water crisis that's been ongoing, where the governor authorized them to change the piping so that they could save money, and ultimately thousands of people have been poisoned. In fact, I'm going to read you an article today about the lead content in the blood of some of the people is just astronomical. And here's the thing, once you get lead poisoning, you never get over it. So if the babies that were born in Flint drank water and got lead poisoning, they will have it for the rest of their lives. But nobody went to jail. You know why, don't you? Because they're white. We're going to talk about that. And I also tell you why Harvard had to rescind the scholarship from the little racist. In fact, that's going to be part of our Black Fact today. All right. I went back and forth about, because what I've been telling you all for the last 2 or 3 years, there is not an argument against reparations. There are racist arguments against reparations. But when you look at what was done to black people in this country, where we work for free, most of the people that benefit today, the banks, some of the insurance companies, some of these, you heard me read the story of the black pastor who was ran off of his land because they thought oil was on it. That land now is owned by International Paper. His family did not get 1 penny for that land. Not 1 penny. Yet, his father was killed. He was ran off along with the family. They took over the land by claiming that it was abandoned. This was a common practice. And those people got nothing. So when I tell you that reparations, it's not that they're in order. They are demanded. And as long as I have breath in my body, even if I'm the only one who's going to talk about reparations, I will talk about them until I die. Because I need my check. So today's story is going to surround that. So let me just set it up. Okay? Let me set it up, because what's concerning to me, and what I've told you all before, just as I just told you that, and we're going to talk about John Crawford today too. There was some news that came out yesterday that I didn't know. But we're going to talk about that as well. We're also going to talk about the insensitive tweet that the Topeka, Kansas Police Department tweeted. Man, these racists are something else, dude. We're going to talk about the 420 bill that has been introduced in federal legislation. You all know the 420 bill, right? You know what 420 is, right? It's weed. I ain't got a problem with that. I was actually going to do a black fact about Cecil Rhodes. You all know Cecil Rhodes, right? Cecil Rhodes is actually the person upon whom the Rhodes Scholarship is named after. So when you become a Rhodes Scholar, what that means is you are one of the smartest of the smarts, and then you get to go to England. They pay for it. You go to school in England and all that other stuff. Well, did you know that was named after one of the most racist people in America, Cecil Rhodes? You didn't? You didn't? Well, that's who it's named after. One of my good friends became a Rhodes Scholar. I bet you didn't know that. But, before we jump into Black Facts, we got to do this.
Dynamic Black Facts. Our culture, our history, our people.
So, the reason I'm bringing this up, and the reason I'm bringing it, because if you didn't know, Harvard yesterday rescinded a scholarship from a little racist. Well, he's not a little racist anymore. He's a big racist. He's about to graduate. And they rescinded this scholarship because this young man had racist stuff on his Facebook page. It was pretty bad. Now, I know I had it pulled up. Let me find it here. It was pretty bad. Okay. Now, the problem I have with this is Harvard had to rescind that scholarship. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They had to rescind that scholarship. And you're probably asking, well, why? Well, Harvard has a racist past. What you all don't realize is that Harvard was, if not the first, it was one of the first higher learning educational schools in America. I think it evolved around 1636 or something like that. And Harvard also sold slaves. Did y'all know that? Harvard also sold slaves. So this young man, and I'm gonna have to go and find the article again. I guess I closed it. This young man, at 16 years old, decided that he would post racist stuff on his Facebook page. And a lot of people are upset with it. And I'm going to read some of the stuff to you. Okay? If I can. And then I'm going to tell you why Harvard had to rescind the scholarship. Okay? This young man repeatedly used the racist slur. He said, Jack F my blank now. Now, B, I mean, you really can't even read it. It's so bad. Where you get in the effing moped and drive B, nigga. And he, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. He wrote that word 12 times. In fact, he bragged about the fact. He said, like, I'm really good at typing nigger. Okay? Like practice, huh? Makes perfect. This is what he wrote on his Facebook page. Now, by the way, you have to understand that this is a young man who was at the Stoneham Douglas massacre, where one of his classmates came in and shot up the school. This young man has now had his scholarship rescinded from Harvard. Now, I know what some of you all are saying. Oh, he was just 16. He didn't mean any harm. Well, yeah, he did. Now, I could probably forgive him, but he's a Donald Trump supporter. Now, what does that tell you? We have a president that is obviously racist. There's no doubt now. There's no question whether or not Donald Trump is a racist. I knew there was no question when you all elected him. But now the whole world has seen that Donald Trump is a racist. Okay? So he's a follower of Donald Trump. And I know what you're saying. Well, he was young. He was only 16. He didn't know what he was saying. If he didn't know what he was saying, he wouldn't have been bragging about the fact that he could write the word nigger really good. Okay? Let's stop saying, oh, well, he didn't know any better. Remember Charlottesville a couple of years ago when all those young white racists were marching? I guess you say they didn't know any better either, right? So I support Harvard for rescinding this scholarship. And he wants to elicit sympathy because he gets on Twitter and says, 3 months ago, after being admitted to Harvard, Harvard has decided to rescind my admission over text and comments made 2 years ago, months prior to the shooting. I have some thoughts. Here's what happened. You know what, Cal Kashuv? I don't care about your thoughts. You're racist. I don't feel sorry for you. Racism has no place in America, although it is everywhere. But now all of a sudden you want us to feel sorry for you and you want to point the finger at Harvard. But you know, Harvard had no choice in rescinding this scholarship. They had no choice because Harvard understands what they did. Harvard understands that it bought and sold slaves. Harvard understands not only did it buy and sell slaves, part of the reason Harvard was able to grow and become the school that it is because of free labor, slavery. You cannot be a place of higher education where you support bigotry and racism. In fact, Harvard educated people, and I'm going to read a piece, and that's part of the Black Facts. Harvard educated people knowing that they were going to be slave owners. Harvard educated the sons and daughters of slave owners because those rich white racists were making millions of dollars off the backs of free labor and sending their children to Ivy League schools. So I told you over and over again, I don't forgive a racist. I don't care how old you are. I don't buy the fact that you're 16 years old and you made a mistake. When you go out and you read that post, that's not a mistake. That is intentional. And you knew exactly what you were doing because that's how you've been taught. So now your racism is coming back to bite you in the ass. And I hope it takes a big hunk of meat. Now, hopefully you will learn a lesson, Mr. Cal Kashuv, or whatever, however you pronounce your name, and you'll say, hey, racism is not going to work for me. Even though your parents and your friends have talked about it, who have bragged about it, who have probably used the word on a regular basis, because it's pretty clear you have because of the way you typed it. I don't forgive you. I hope the consequences rain down on you like fire from hell. And I don't care if you are 18. Because I've said over and over again, the only reason racism continues to rear its ugly head in America is because white parents are teaching their children racism. Black people didn't create racism. White people did. The only people that can fix racism are white people. I don't care if you get mad at me. Because I'm tired. I'm 58 years old. I would have loved to live at least 1 year of my life out from under the thumb of racism. But unfortunately, I'm probably going to go to my grave and racism will have to be dealt with by my children and your children. So I have no sympathy for you. I have no sympathy for a little rich white boy who decided that he wanted to be openly racist and not understanding what living under the thumb of racism and how it really affects me as a black man or some of your black students or classmates. So the reason Harvard had to rescind that scholarship, because they knew if they didn't, they were going to catch all kinds of hell. Okay? Let me read this to you. Cashew, who apologized last month for making the racial slurs, posted a series of tweets on Monday calling Harvard's decision deeply disturbing. Okay? Throughout its history, Harvard's faculty has included slave owners, segregationists, bigots, and anti-Semites. If Harvard is suggesting that growth isn't possible and that our past defines our future, then Harvard is an inherently racist institution. But I don't believe that. I believe that institutions and people can grow. Now, this is Mr. Cashew, the young 18-year-old, trying to chastise Harvard. Because he understands and he knows Harvard's racist past. And Harvard is trying to move past that racist past. And here's the thing. See, you got to have a problem with someone who apologizes after they get caught. Y'all get that, right? Okay? So had this text not ever come up, Mr. Cashew's racism would have still been in the closet. We'd have never known. So, and I'm kind of talking to my interns. I don't know what you all's habits are on social media, but just be aware that what you do on social media will come back to bite you in the butt, just like this guy. So if you're one of those people that are out there posting all your business on social media, telling all your business on social media, it's going to come back to bite you in the butt. Let this be a lesson, okay? But let me get to the Harvard thing because, see, and I'm not going to read all of this. In fact, Harvard published a 37-page document. It's called Harvard and Slavery, okay? In the colonial era. The story of Harvard and slavery begins in the era of its founding. By the mid-17th century, slaves were part of the fabric of everyday life in colonial Massachusetts. They lived and labored in the colony. Their owners were often political leaders and heads of prominent families. It should be no surprise that slaves followed the children of that elite onto campus, working in Harvard buildings, passing through Harvard's yards, laboring in the houses of Harvard's alumni, serving its faculty off campus. Their toil contributed to many of the fortunes that funded the university. Still few imagings of colonial Harvard in prose or paint include slaves among the scholars and students who paced its yards. Why should this be? For one, the numbers, occupations, and prevalence of slaves in Massachusetts do not match the common imagery of slavery that, in the United States, has come to be understood mostly through the lens of the 19th century South. We picture slaves on cotton plantations in Mississippi or on rice plantations in coastal South Carolina. Slavery in the New World, however, had a much longer and deeper history in which Harvard played an important role. Not long after their first harsh winters, colonists in Massachusetts and all of New England saw their main chance for success lay in trade connections to the vastly richer plantation colonies in the South and especially the Caribbean. Called the West Indies by the British colonists, the islands of the Caribbean and the eastern coast of South America were the primary economic engines of the major European empires in the New World. On plantations in the West Indies, slaves labored in large, mostly producing sugar. Profits from selling sugar, molasses, and their byproducts enriched Europe and its New World intermediaries. Though half an ocean away from the Caribbean, the Massachusetts economy was an important vertex and complicated, vaguely triangular Atlantic slave trade. For the first 150 years of Harvard's history, slaves not only served Harvard's leaders, slave labor played a vital role in the unprecedented appreciation of wealth by New England merchants that laid the foundation of Harvard's status as a world-class institution. Couple more graphs and I'll be done. Slavery was legal in Massachusetts until the American Revolution. It should not surprise us then that during these same colonial years, Harvard students were deeply entangled with slave owning. They recited their lessons to slave owning professors like Judah Monas and obeyed the rules set out by slave owning presidents like Increase Mather and Benjamin Wadsworth. By the way, these are presidents of Harvard. They ate meals and slept in beds prepared by 4 generations of the Boardman family. The college stewards, whose many slaves likely did some or all of the actual cooking and cleaning. On Sundays, they attended church at the First Church of Cambridge, where they listened to sermons by slave-owning ministers. William Brattle himself, a Harvard graduate of the class of 1680. When they graduated, many Harvard students became slave owners. Waite Steele Winthrop, class of 1662, owned a slave named Mingo, alias Cock Negro, who was executed in 1712. Cotton Mather, class of 1678, owned a slave named Onimus, who explained the African practice of inoculation to his master during the smallpox epidemic. Y'all remember Onimus, don't you? We talked about him on Black Facts. See, Onimus helped keep black people, white people, from dying of smallpox. Because Onimus would he told his master, Cotton Mather, to introduce a small portion of the virus, and the body would eventually combat it and become immune. So here was a black man who was a slave under the guise of Harvard, who kept white people from dying of smallpox. Did y'all know that? John Cumming, class of 1750, was an eminent physician in Harvard, Massachusetts, whose slaves Brister and Jim underwrote with their labor his founding bequest to the Harvard Medical School. Wow. John Hancock, class of 1754, owned slaves named Molly, Agnes, Cato, Prince, and Hannibal, as well as Frank, who is buried at the foot of Hancock's monument in the Granary Burying Ground in Boston. Notably, Puritan divine and Harvard president Increase Mather wrote in his 1718 will that his slave called Spaniard should not be sold after my decease. But I do then give him his liberty. Let him be esteemed a free Negro. Now, in fact, I'm going to go ahead and post this on my wall. It is a PDF document. I want you to go out and read this document. It's 37 pages, but I want you to understand how Harvard had to rescind that scholarship because, see, Harvard is trying to make amends. Harvard is afraid, just like most white people in the South who stole land from black people, that they're going to be sued. Remember, Georgetown now has already said that any descendants of slaves that can be documented, that all of their descendants now get free college. Y'all got any descendants that were slaves at Georgetown? Might want to go look. You can get free college at Georgetown. So the point I'm trying to make to you is that everywhere we look, in every fabric of America, there's bigotry and racism. And in every fabric of America, America benefited from the peculiar institution called slavery. And we want our checks. We don't want you to try to put together programs where money can be siphoned off. We want our checks. I told you what I want. I'll take $100,000 in a non-payback loan so I can really crank my business up. So you're not really even giving me money. You're just setting aside money so I can start my business, and then I'm going to turn around and I'm going to hire some people. And that's our Black Facts for today.
Keep listening to Black Focus Radio for more dynamic Black facts, our culture, our history, our people on joynetradio.com.
And if you'd like to sponsor Dynamic Black Facts, you can call me at 615-554-0568, and we'll put together an advertising package for you. Also, it is Buy Black Week through the 23rd. If you are a black person, you ought to be spending money at a black business. It's not that you're obligated. Aren't you tired of all this murder and mayhem in your neighborhoods? You know, part of the reason that happens is because there's no economic opportunity. What would happen if we had stores in our neighborhoods? Then those young black brothers out there that are banging and slanging, guess what we could do? We could put them to work, and then they could have mentors. And then those mentors can say, hey, here's how you do it legally. Because, see, I know for a fact that those young brothers don't want to be out there banging and slanging. I know they don't. But you know what? In most cases, they don't have a choice. And that's because we as the black community, we don't offer them a choice. Because there are no choices in our community. Because why? Because we don't spend money with black businesses. You want to save our children? Then you got to start spending your money with black businesses. You know how that works. I've told you over and over again, hey, if I start a black business, then guess what? I'm going to hire black kids. And then those black kids will see, hey, look, if Mr. Coleman can start a business and be successful, I can start a business and be successful. But right now, the only role models that many of them are seeing are grown-ass men banging and slanging who have been in the game. That's no way to live. That's no life to live. So if you're not shopping at a black business, what's wrong with you? So this is Buy Black this week, all 17th through the 23rd. And as I told you, I have left my Coleman's Dynamic Rib Rub, my gift box, the Pick 6 or the Pick 10. You can still get that for $29.95 or $39.95, depending on what you want. Pick 6 for $29.95, any of my products. Pick 10 for $39.95, any of my products. If you figure that out, the Pick 10 is the better deal. A lot of people took advantage of that this week at Juneteenth. We had a great time. Hats off to the people of the Mosaic Templars for putting on a great show. But now we need you to come and spend some money over here at Join That Radio and buy some advertising. Yep, I'll call you out. My girl Quantia down there, love you a lot. Come spend some money at Join That Radio. Okay? Y'all know how we do it. As I said, we've got 2 interns in there. They're going to learn a lot, aren't they, fam? You've learned already, haven't you? Yeah. We hadn't barely 30 minutes in the show. This is what we do on Black Focus. So we're going to learn a lot about a lot of different things. So where do we want to start today? Well, we've already started about Kyle Kashuv. I'm sorry, I know y'all think I may be being a little cold, a little insensitive, but we have to stop forgiving racism. That mess about turn the other cheek, guess what? When you turn the other cheek, what do? They slap you on that one too, don't they? So what you gonna do then? You gonna turn around and bend over and let them kick you in the butt? At some point, we have to call a spade a spade. At some point, we have to call a racist a racist. At some point, we have to call a liar a liar. And Donald Trump is all of those. And because he's leading the charge, all of a sudden you're seeing racism rear its ugly head. If you don't think that this killing of black people is by design, all you got to do is read history. How did police come into playing? They were patty rollers. They were initially slave hunters. Their roles have not changed. Think about how they refer to black males. Think about how they refer to black females. I mean, if you thought someone else were human, How could you treat them the way you do? If you respect, see, and and people ask me all the time, why do white people hate black people so much? Why this racism? Why does it never go away? Think about it from this perspective. In fact, I've seen black people reject knowledge because they've been taught one thing for so long. But think about it from this perspective. Could you imagine the shock when the white explorers ventured into Africa? And after all those years, no longer, who knows how long they were living in caves, and then they developed and thought, hey, we the stuff. We this. We that. And then they decided that, hey, let's go explore. Dun, 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 dun. And they decided to go to Africa. And when they walked into Egypt, or when they got down to Sudan and Ethiopia, and they saw all of those pyramids, can you imagine the shock thinking that you the first? It's kind of like Columbus thinking that he had discovered America and realized that there were already black folks in America. Y'all will get that in a moment, because y'all do know that those were originally black folks, right? Not Native Americans, they were black folks. All right? But can you imagine the shock? You Billy Badass, you Europe, you super white man, we're going to go explore and conquer the world. And you go into Africa, and there are people already there, and they got all these big old rocks. And not only are they big rocks, but they've been carved. Geometrically carved precisely to the nth degree. Can you imagine the shock? So you have to begin to fashion a lie. There's a reason. Have you all ever noticed when you see statues from Egypt? Have you ever noticed the nose is blown off? You may not have, but from this point on, when you see statues of people from Egypt, look at their noses. Have you ever seen a picture of the Sphinx? You know that face that looks like a lion? You ever notice his nose? I'm talking to my interns right now, y'all. Y'all hang on.
I don't know. I never noticed it, but I probably have. I probably just. It's still up.
His nose is not there. It was blown off by white intruders because they thought that they were the first. And the how do I tell your ethnicity? One of those features is your nose. So if I'm white and I live in Egypt, wouldn't I paint pictures and make statues that look like me? So why did they paint pictures that look like black folks? Because they were black. You get that, right? So this is what shocked them. They realized that, hey, wait a minute, we are not the first. And then they had to figure out a way how to conquer them. And that's what happened. So that's what the problem is. So in my opinion, once a racist, always a racist. Now, people change. I agree with that. But when you change, you have to show change. You can't say, hey, look at me, I've changed. Look at me, I'm a porcupine. Do I look like a porcupine to y'all? But I'm a porcupine. I said I was a porcupine. But I'm not a porcupine, am I? And just because you say you've changed from being racist, then you just can't say it, you gotta show it. And that doesn't mean you get a second chance. That means you show and repent first, and then based on your repentance, then we come back and reward you for your change. This young man hadn't changed. This young man decided that he wanted to go after Harvard. He wanted people to shame Harvard Because Harvard has decided that, hey, look, we're not going to accept your bigotry and racism. And he's mad. He's mad. Just like most white males here are mad. What's wrong with white males in America? That they can go into a movie theater and shoot it up. I can understand black males, part of which I'm a black male. But I also have lived some of the frustrations that black males have lived. So I can certainly understand the pressure of racism on a black man that will cause him sometimes to do unforgivable things. Because I know we're always the last hired and the first to be fired. I know that we have to stay 3 steps ahead of them because they're going to push us back too. I understand that we are always in the spotlight because of melanin. But why should a white boy be upset? Why should a white boy be killing? Because his privilege is leaving. He's going to have to earn his keep the way black people have for decades, for centuries. No longer will he be able to go to Bob, his dad's cousin, and say, hey, put me over the vice presidential department. Make me the vice president. He ain't gonna do that. He ain't gonna be able to do that anymore. They're mad at that because now all of a sudden people understand their white privilege. People are not gonna accept it anymore. And they don't know how to handle it. And I say that because, see, what you all don't understand is this, okay? That yesterday in Dallas, Texas, another white male attacked the federal building. His name was Brian Clyde. Let's make sure we know who this racist is. Dallas federal building shooter posted far-right memes about Nazis and the Confederacy. He showed off guns and racist images on Facebook, okay? A Texas man accused of opening fire outside of Dallas courthouse unloaded right-wing memes to Facebook, uploaded right-wing memes to Facebook, including memes about Nazi and the Confederacy. Authorities said Brian Clyde, 22, attacked the Earl Cable Federal Courthouse Monday morning before law enforcement killed him. No one else was injured. A Dallas Morning News photograph of Clyde shows him holding a semi-automatic rifle and wearing a belt full of ammunition. He appears to have uploaded to his Facebook page a picture of similar magazines on Saturday. Elsewhere on the page, he shared memes, some of which suggested racist and misogynistic views. Authorities did not offer a possible motive for Clyde's rampage and declined to comment on his social media presence. Wearing a ski mask and what appeared to be a bulletproof vest, Clyde reportedly opened fire on bystanders near the courthouse parking lot. He then reportedly fired on the building, shattering glass on the front doors. Police later detonated what they described as a suspicious device in the car Clyde parked nearby. Last week, Clyde uploaded a Facebook video suggesting plans with a gun. I don't know how much longer I have, but a storm is coming. However, I'm not without defense. That's your little white racist. And there are a lot of them running around this country. This is why I've been telling you all that you all need to get strapped. You all need to get you a gun. Get it legally. Because these white boys really believe that there is something happening. I believe that they're going to try something. Are you ready? That reminds me of a meme that I posted earlier because of this fact. Because they're telling you. Now, it is going to be our fault if, in fact, we don't do something about this. If we're caught unawares. If we're caught with our pants down. They're telling you. By the way, if you hadn't seen him, that's him right there. He's in full military regalia. Okay? And the sad thing about this, and I want to read this meme to you. Because when I tell you that you ought to be prepared, you ought to be prepared. A student says to his master, "You talk about peace, but you teach me fighting. How do you reconcile the two?" The master replied, "It is better to be a warrior in a garden than be a gardener in a war." Y'all get that? In other words, it's better to know how to defend yourself than not to know how to defend yourself. And it's just so ironic I'm talking about this. I posted this last night. Let me read that again. A student says to his master, "You talk about peace, but you teach me fighting. How do you reconcile the two?" The master replied, "It is better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war." So folks, get strapped. Get legal. My next gun purchase will be an AK-47. It's legal. I ain't playing. Because if they come for me, they better bring the lunch. Don't let me see you coming. Get strapped, folks. And the funny thing about this story is that the media is not even talking about this guy. The media is they're not even broaching the subject about this guy. And the reason I bring that up is because what you all don't know, and it reminded me of Little Rock. It reminded me of Little Rock because Little Rock just passed. We talked about the no-knock warrants. Okay? We talked about those, and for some reason, Little Rock failed to talk about white racist. And I had let me see if I can find it real fast. I had the breakdown of their threat assessment. And I find it curious that white racism and white racists are not covered on this threat assessment. Can you all tell me why? I don't know why. Are we still ignoring white racists? So here's a threat assessment right here that the Little Rock Police Department just released, okay? It says, suspect assessment, known to use or propensity for violence. So in other words, if we know that person has committed certain crimes, that's a threat. So that covers homicide, armed robbery, assault, resisting arrest, and assault on a police officer, okay? That's A. Now B, does the suspect have prior arrest for destroying evidence? That's what they use a no-knock. So in other words, if they're after someone and they know that this person has destroyed evidence before, they're going to break your door down. C, is suspect on parole for drug or weapons charges? D, is suspect on probation for drug or weapons charges? E, is suspect mentally unstable? This is their threat assessment. This is supposedly what goes to the judge. Okay? F, does suspect have military or police background? In other words, if that person has a military or police background, then that person is going to know how to tactically fight. That's the threat assessment. Now, here's G. Is the suspect currently or historically associated with an organization which is known or suspected of violent criminal activity? If yes, what group and organization? Can the organization be classified as terrorist, religious extremist, gang, or sovereign citizen? Now, you know what terrorist covers, right? You know what that covers, right? Muslims. You know what religious extremist covers, right? Muslims. You know what gangs cover, right? black kids. You know what sovereign citizens cover, right? White males. So what about white terrorism? So based on the threat assessment that the Little Rock Police Department has, that guy who went and shot up the federal building in Dallas on Monday, he would not have been considered a threat. Y'all get that, right? So again, I'm going to ask you the question, why aren't white males considered a threat? Because it seems to me that they are the ones that are shooting up schools, churches, movie theaters, country music concerts. But it's always the black guy who gets murdered by police. Hello? This is real talk here. But y'all know that. You listen to the show. What is the threat assessment? Why aren't white terrorists, as Ocasio-Cortez, Congress Lady Ocasio-Cortez asked the FBI, when are white men, white boys, going to be considered terrorists? Did you know that they set up Black Lives Matter as a terrorist organization? The FBI did. Black Lives Matter hadn't killed anyone. But the FBI began to investigate all of the Black Lives Matter members and considered them a threat to national security. When all Black Lives Matter was doing was trying to bring light to the fact that police are killing black boys. Because last I checked in the Constitution, you're innocent until proven guilty. You have a right to be judged by a jury of your peers. Do I need to pull out my Constitution? Because y'all know I have one. In fact, I found out I got two. (855-525-5683) is the number. When we come back on the backside of the top, at the top of the hour, after the top of the hour, I should say. When we come back, we're going to give you an update on John Crawford. Y'all remember John Crawford, right? Y'all remember him, the father who went to, that was in Ohio and went to Walmart with his girlfriend and their baby. And he decided, like all of us do, to peruse Walmart. And he went to the toy section and picked up an air rifle and was playing with an air rifle. A racist white boy called the police. And once the police arrived, Crawford had barely a second before they shot him dead. Because he was in Walmart. And what you all don't realize when I read you the story is that the white boy who called police on John Crawford lied and said that Crawford had actually pointed a weapon at him. And it was a certain brand of weapon. You know, we're upset today when white people, you know, what do we call them? A park patty. You know, she calls police on black people who are in the park. Call police on black people who are sleeping in the great room of a college dormitory. We're seeing all of this. And recently, the state of Oregon has decided that they were going to pass legislation that if you call police on someone who is minding their own business, although there's not enough teeth, you're going to end up paying a fine. So the question is, will this person pay a fine? No. So not only John Crawford was killed, the commotion in Walmart startled another one of their guests, and that lady died of a heart attack. So two people in this particular case ended up dying because a racist white boy called and lied to the police. We're going to talk about that and give you an update on that story when we return. You're listening to Black Focus Radio. I'm Dynamic Dave on JoyNetRadio.com. So now I got to do a stop set. We always break. Theoretically, we break during the show too. Drag the spot down there. So at any point I can fire it just by clicking play.
This is attorney Danielle Walker from the Walker Law Firm.
We'll
Are you
pause that.
drowning in debt? Is your debt becoming unmanageable?
So we have 3
Are you
minutes.
struggling to make ends meet?
So, any questions?
Time to consider bankruptcy options. Call me at 501-374.
You notice how I'm rolling through topic after topic after topic
Legal guidance and
seamlessly?
foreclosure,
You can't do this.
bill collectors,
People that say they can do radio,
garnishments, and more.
it's not that easy. You'll realize that a minute is a long time. I have a 2-hour show. All right? So you see all the stuff I'm prepared to talk about. But I just can't bring it up and read. I need to have some background on it. So I've got to do research. In order to do a credible show, you just can't come into your show and start. Now, I knew a guy. All he did was read the paper. His name was Oliver C. Reed. He come in every morning. He did 6 to 9 a.m. He had been in the business for years. All he would do was come in and read the paper. He'd get the USA Today. I was in Memphis, and he'd get the Commercial Appeal, and he would read articles from the paper all day long. His whole show. Okay, but I like to prep, you know, and it is important that you do prep because it makes your show sound much better. Does that make sense? So this is why I'm telling you, you need to watch the news. So your assignment for tonight is to come in here tomorrow and tell me a subject that you might want, that might be interesting to talk about. It has to be black. It can be the news. You can do research, whatever you want. Okay. All right. So let's see here. We're going to talk about this case next. And there's a lot of other stuff that I want to talk about as well. But like I said, we'll do this John Crawford now.
Hi, I'm attorney Theodore Thompson from the Thompson Law Firm, and I want to help with your legal matter. Whether it's controversy, bankruptcy, personal injury, or family law, I want to help you. I can be reached at 501-503-50.
And it's so funny now, when I go to Walmart, if I go over into the gun section or the BB gun section, I am very careful of what I pick up. Huh? Oh yeah.
The views and opinions expressed today on Black Focus Radio are not the views and opinions of the station, its management, or its advertisers. Now, let's get ready to focus on our issues, our solutions, using our voices on Black Focus Radio.
Welcome to Black Focus, the show designed with our community in mind, where we focus on our issues, developing our solutions, using our voices. Central Arkansas, surrounding areas, and the nation. Get ready. Black Focus starts right now. Phone lines open at 855-525-5683. So here's your host, David W. Golden and Robert Webb.
Well, y'all get yourselves on in here. It's the second hour of Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices. 855-525-5683 is the number. Sorry, can't forgive racism. You know, I tell you what, cut me a check and I'll start thinking about forgiving racism. Because that means that you're sorry, right? That means that you understand what racism has done to black people, what slavery did to black people. So cut them a check. And then we can start talking about, okay, your repentance. But as long as you run around here waving Confederate flags and secretly using the N-word, that dog don't hunt for me, dog. I'm sorry. Don't hunt for me. But last hour I kind of ended the hour on a tease about John Crawford. Okay? You all remember John Crawford. I mentioned him, He was a man who was out shopping. I mean, I don't go to Walmart that much anymore, but I tell you what, when I go to Walmart now, I'm paying attention to what I pick up. Because John Crawford was shopping with his wife, his girlfriend, his fiance, and their small child. And he just happened to go through the choice section and pick up a gun. But it was a toy gun. Someone in Walmart called and said that there was a man in Walmart and he had pointed with a rifle and he had pointed the gun at him. John Crawford was shot down like a dog in Walmart. Because Walmart had a toy rifle that, we've all at some point went through a toy section and picked up any type of toys. When I grew up, believe it or not, cap guns were popular. When we grew up, we all had BB guns, believe it or not. Pump action BB guns, where you pump it up, you pump it 10 times. So today, you're telling me that a kid with a BB gun is subject to be killed? Let alone, well, that's right. Tamir Rice had a toy gun playing in the park. Officer Timothy Loman, Officer Piece of Crap Timothy Loman, drives up and with 1 second, he blows Tamir Rice's brains out. Think about that. But here's a man in Walmart, in a store that is selling guns, and he's killed. So Walmart right now, this trial is underway, apparently. Nearly 5 years after John Crawford III was shot and killed in Beaver Creek, Ohio Walmart store, the retailer says the man who called 911 was not telling the truth. Listen, Ronald Ritchie, who was the white man who called police, intentionally lied to police, according to court documents. Ronald Ritchie was not a good Samaritan who was mistaken. The document lays out a case that claims Ritchie lied about watching Crawford load an automatic rifle with live rounds and point the gun at women and children. Attorneys for Walmart said because of information provided by Ritchie's 911 call, responding officers entered the store with a belief they were responding to an in-progress active shooter situation. Court documents also said attorneys want to use testimony from Beaver Creek officers that says the information they received from the 911 call shaped their state of mind and influenced their conduct. Attorneys for Walmart said surveillance video shows Crawford never pointed the MK-177 air rifle at anyone in the store, nor loaded it. Crawford was shot and killed inside the Beaver Creek Walmart on August 5th, 2014, 2 years after the shooting. A group of activists pushed for charges to be filed against Ritchie. Y'all get that? You follow that? This guy ought to be in prison. What is not stated in this document, oh, here it is. A woman inside the store also died. Angela Williams passed away from a heart condition after she ran from the sounds of gunfire. So this guy, Ritchie, caused 2 people to die that day because he called police and lied. See, when we hear about Barbecue Becky or Park Patty, you all don't understand the implications of this. You all need to remember. See, some of you all, it's been so long that this John Crawford case happened. You all have forgotten. Here's a classic example of when white people call police on black people and they lie about it. These are the results. Black people die And these white people go about their business, not even being concerned, not even being charged. In this case, 2 people are dead because a white racist called and lied on a black guy. And we know he lied because what? Store surveillance shows that he never pointed that toy gun at anyone. But that's not what that white racist said. And people say, well, how do you know he was racist? He was white. He called the police and lied on a black man. Yeah, that's racist. That's racist. You know, it's funny, and some of y'all are saying he should be charged with murder. I agree. So let me give you an example to show you how warped this is. And I can pull up the story if I need to, but I'm just going to go by memory. Have y'all heard the story of the young black guy who is, I think he's serving 75 years in prison because his friend and his friend were participating in some type of crime, and the police shot and killed his friend. So the police charged him with murder, and he was convicted of murder. Have y'all heard that story? So this young man, who was black, had nothing to do with killing killing his friend, but he's being charged with murder. Think about that. So why shouldn't this Richie guy be charged with murder? He caused 2 people to die over a false story. That should not be happening. 855-525-5683. But we live in America. Y'all apologizing yet? Speaking of police, here's what the Topeka Police Department in Kansas posted on Father's Day. Now, I know you all think police are just these wonderful people, but I'm telling you, man, these people are pieces of crap. Here's their tweet. Does your child's father have warrants? Is he carrying around any drugs? Has he been committing any crimes? Want to give him a Father's Day he'll never forget? Call TPD and we'll help your family make a memory that will last a lifetime. How disgusting is that? How disgusting is that? So now they're back. So when y'all say that police are these wonderful people, think about this. Think about what police have done in your community. I'm sorry. Look, if police want to be judged, then they need to start doing the right things. They have to. I'll give you all the credit in the world that the job is tough, but you should not have some set aside that allows you to violate the law. And for the police in Topeka, Kansas to be this bold to post this on Father's Day, first of all, would you have posted this on Mother's Day? I'm just wondering. Would you have posted this on Mother's Day? Wow. Somebody ought to be fired. But you know, police don't get fired. They're above the law. I'm looking at another story here where this black man owned the gym. They called the SWAT team out on him. He could have been killed. He got the person of interest in a bank that was robbed. They called the SWAT team out on him. He's now suing the Detroit Police Department. And rightfully so. They literally ruined his business. And because they have not solved the crime as of yet, they still call him a person of interest. When the so let me give an example. A day earlier, the Chemical Bank branch in Grosse Pointe Woods had been robbed. Shortly after, the Public Safety Department in an upscale Detroit suburb, whose residents are 89% white and 4.9% black, according to a Southeast Michigan Council of Governments, released a description of the suspect. African American male, 45 to 50 years of age, approximately 6 foot, 230 to 240 pounds. Fox, the guy that the police jumped, is 44, 5'11", and he's 260 pounds. After images of the robbery suspect from the bank video system went out with the police description, police said a Facebook tipster suggested the suspect might be the owner of Detroit Thrive, which is a gym. But Fox and his lawyer said he clearly isn't the man in the photos. Grosse Pointe Woods police still jailed him for 2 days in April last year. They also ransacked Fox's home in Harper Woods, where he lives, and with his wife and his 11-year-old son. After 48 hours, police released him without filing charges. Now it's been more than a year, and they still refuse to clear his name. Fox said he lost 20% of his clients when word of his arrest spread through Facebook and other social mediums. He owes some money. And what's bad about this, he will sue and probably win. But that doesn't help or hurt the police. That money doesn't come out of their pension fund. That money comes from taxpayers. Now, I'm sure there's some type of insurance fund that city pays into, but still, the city uses taxpayers' money to pay the insurance. I agree with you, Ladybug. They do try to do anything to clear their cases. We see now, all you got to do is pay attention to what's going on in the news. It seems like once a week now, a black defendant, an innocent black defendant, is being released after they've spent decades in jail for crimes that they never committed. Because police are lazy, they're racist, and they don't mind sending a black man to jail. They don't mind. You rarely hear these stories of white people, but you hear them of black people. Did you say reparations? 855-525-5683 is the number. That's how you get in touch with me. This just goes on and on, folks. You know, I'd love to come in here and talk about rose petals and lily pads, but you can't. There are too many black people going to jail. We just talked, look, everybody's up in arms about the Central Park 5. And rightfully so. But what you going to do about it? Are you going to tell your son not to go to college? Not to go play for that PWI and go to an HBCU? He's still going to get discovered. He's still going to be seen. Is that what you're going to do? In fact, I would argue, my son, I have a son and a daughter, okay? My son graduated from Tennessee State. My daughter graduated from Middle Tennessee State. And you know what my son says? He wished he would have went to Tennessee State. Although he had scholarships at Middle, he could have did both, but I let him choose. He kind of didn't want to follow his sister at TSU, so he went to Middle. And he says even today that he wished he would have went to an HBCU. 855-525-5683 is the number. That's how you get in touch with me. Let's see what else I got. We talked a little bit about Cecil Rhodes. I'm not going to talk about him anymore. I'm sorry that the show today is inundated with police stories. But man, they keep getting in trouble. They keep doing stuff. Now, I would like to ask, because I know you listen, I would like to ask city officials, have you went back and did a purge, or at least an investigation, on whether or not you have police in your department that have espoused racist comments on Facebook? I would advise you that you go out and scrub your officers' accounts and see what they've said. Because here's a West Georgia man. He is out as a jailer in the Harrison County Sheriff's Office after anti-fascist activists in Atlanta exposed him and another man as leaders of a Norse pagan group with numerous white supremacist ties. Now, we've told you on this show that Arkansas has been documented to have at least 5,000 to 8,000 racist white supremacists in Arkansas alone. Okay? What are the odds that some of them are on our police departments? What are the odds that some of those racist police, not all, but some of those racist police are on not just the police department here in Little Rock, but police departments across this city, this state? So wouldn't it be smart if the administrators, the sheriff's office, the local police departments launch an investigation and scrub those officers? Because see, right now here in Little Rock, black people don't trust police because black people in Little Rock believe they're racist. And if we look at some of the things that they've done, then they are, to some extent. When you hang a man on Canis and Rodney Parham in broad daylight, and then pretend like it was his fault, then you're a racist, aren't you, Charles Starks? I'm just asking a question. So, and of course we talked last week about the Phoenix police chief who realized that she currently have officers on her squad who was busted for making racist comments. She put him on desk duty. This is the same Phoenix Police Department. It's pretty clear they're racist. These are the same people that train their guns on a mother, a father, and 2 children. One that was 3 and the other one was an infant. I'm pretty sure that 1-year-old child was going to pose some danger. I'm pretty sure that 1-year-old child was going to pull out her AK-47 and light the police up. And remember, they did all of this because the 3-year-old had picked up a $5 doll and walked out of the store. Cussed him up and down. Told the guy that he would blow his brains out. Kicked the guy while he had his handcuffs behind his back. And then lied on the report and said that he didn't do it. Or didn't mention the fact that he had done it. He said that he had told the guy to spread his legs. But you actually kicked one of his legs and knocked him down. This is the same police department in Phoenix that the police officers were shown to have racist tendencies based on their posts. So I can only judge you by what you say. So if you're posting racism, like our little Harvard reject, that's what I'm going to call him now, the Harvard reject. If you're posting racism, you're racist. In fact, I was hoping my racist came back to my YouTube feed that was on there yesterday. Anytime you're a racist out there and you want to call my show, you're more than welcome. I'll let you espouse your ignorance. And then I'll blow you out of the water to show you just how ignorant you are. So any of you all out there who listen to this show who download the show later on. I'm sure you shared it with your homies, your Proud Boys. Any of you all who want to call the show and prove to me why you're the superior race. It's kind of like this. I played football. You always knew who the good ones were, right? They didn't have to tell you they were good. You knew. Right? Just like basketball. You know who the best players are. They don't have to tell you they're good. Just like when you're in class. You know who the smart guy is, right? That smart guy is always getting A's. Or that smart girl is always getting A's. They don't have to tell you. Now, sometimes they sit there and be smug knowing I'm the smartest person in the room. But they're telling the truth. So you don't have to tell me you're racist. You just show me with your actions. And that's what the police department is doing. And then you wonder why there's no trust. You wonder why people don't trust the department. I think you could do yourself a solid. I think police departments across this country could do yourself a solid. The number one complaint against police officers from the black community is your racism. So you could do yourself a solid by going through and scrubbing your department's Facebook posts from every officer you have and see what is being said. And then you fire them. That's how you do that. 855-525-5683 is the number. I hope I don't have another police show story. I'm tired of them. But hell, they're everywhere. Oh, man. Here's another one. Messenger. Shot by a white colleague, black St. Louis officer speaks out about the department divided by race. Y'all don't remember this story, do you? Milton Green lay in the emergency room bed at Barnes Jewish Hospital. The St. Louis cop had been shot in the forearm. Y'all get that, right? But he had been shot by a fellow officer. Okay? Interim Police Chief Lawrence O'Toole was by his side with a pestle and other top brass from the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department. They asked Green what happened. I told them from beginning to end. It wasn't true. Wait a minute. I skipped a paragraph. Sorry about that. Not long after the interview, O'Toole went before the press and told them that Green had been injured by friendly fire. It wasn't true. Green, who grew up in North St. Louis and has lived there most of his life, is black. He was shot by a white cop. That will be 2 years ago on Friday, and Green hasn't been back to work. On Monday, he filed a federal civil rights lawsuit against the city and the police department and the officer who shot him. They abandoned him, said Green's attorney. The lawsuit alleges that Green was shot by a fellow officer, Christopher Tanner, because Green was a black man with a gun. The federal suit comes at a precarious time for the city. More than a dozen police officers are under investigation for a series of racist... Well, hell, we just talked about this. The city is under investigation for a series of racist media posts, some of them around the time Green was shot. Again, Little Rock, y'all need to do some research and investigation that were unveiled by the Plainview Project, a database produced by Philadelphia attorney Emily Baker White. 4 officers from the department are under federal indictment for an incident involving a black undercover police officer, Luther Hall, getting beat up by police during protest following the Jason Stockley verdict. In an exclusive interview with the Post-Dispatch, Green said that if he were a white officer, he believes the department would have handled everything differently. I wouldn't have gotten shot. How did he not see my badge in my hand? My gun was pointed down. The other officers were calm. The detective told them who I was and told them not to shoot. In the nearly 2 years since the shooting, Green has felt separated from the department he called home. Listen, black folks, if I were white, I feel I would have been taken care of. That's how I feel. So, okay, so y'all remember Timothy Loman. He's the one that killed Tamir Rice. Remember the guy who killed Philando Castile. Remember the guy who killed the guy in Ferguson. All of them got windfalls. People took up collections, sent them money. They got thousands of dollars. But remember Muhammad Noor, who killed the white woman in Minnesota? He got 12 and a half years behind bars. So white cops get money, but black cops get prison for doing the same thing. Now, here was a black cop who was shot by white police officers. He's one of their own. And black cops, you all out there need to be paying attention to this, because it's pretty clear. We know right now what's going on in Little Rock is that Little Rock black police officers have to have their own union because they don't get their needs serviced by the white FOP. This guy was shot by his own officers, and they abandoned him. Ain't that something? 855-525-5683 is the number. That's how you get in touch with us, if you want to talk. We'll get to the Flint story in just a moment. I'm kind of saving that for last, because I want to tell you how white privilege works. And the reason it's called white privilege is because it only works for white folks. Speaking of which, NPR has identified a fourth attacker in a civil rights era cold case. Look at old Bus up there. Y'all go out and look at this article on my wall. This old racist is sitting up, and watch when I read what he said. I'm going to read most of this story. An NPR investigation has uncovered, and see, we've been talking about reparations, right? We've been talking about what white people did to black people. This investigation uncovered new evidence in a prominent unsolved murder case from the civil rights era, including the identity of an attacker who admitted his involvement but was never charged. So here's a white man that admitted his involvement, he was never charged, and the ones who actually stood trial, they were not convicted. The murder of Boston minister James Reeb in 1965 drew national attention at the time and spurred passage of the Voting Rights Act, which outlawed the Jim Crow voting practices that had disenfranchised millions of black Americans. Now, I know some of y'all may not understand what that meant is that, so for instance, one of the rules in voting is that in order to vote in a certain election, if you were black, that means your grandfather had to vote. Y'all understand what that means? In 1965, you couldn't vote in certain elections unless your grandfather voted. Now, we know that your grandfather couldn't have voted because many of them were slaves. Slaves were not allowed to vote. Those were just one of the laws that they passed to keep black folks from voting. I got two people in here, they're my interns, and they love history. Their eyes are rolling back in their head right now. So y'all take for granted what you have today. Y'all have no idea. This is why history is so important. But here's a 4-year investigation led by Alabama-based reporters Tim Brantley and Andrew Beck Grace found an eyewitness. Well, let me go back. The case remains officially unsolved. 3 men charged in the 1965 attack of Reeb and two other ministers on a street corner in Selma, Alabama, were acquitted by an all-white jury. But a 4-year NPR investigation found a witness to the attack who never spoke up publicly, she said. She said 3 men acquitted in the case, Elmer Cook, William Stanley Hogle, Naaman O'Neill, and Duck Hogle, were in fact the men who attacked Reed. That witness, Francis Bowden, also described the participation of another man, William Portwood. In an exclusive interview with NPR, Portwood confirmed his participation in the 1965 attack. All I did was kick him. Portwood had been a cabinet maker in 1965, but on the side worked and as hired muscle for Cook. When asked about the night Reed was attacked, he said, "I was more than there." He said he was more than there. Okay, Portwood died less than 2 weeks after NPR confirmed his involvement. At the time of his interview with NPR, Portwood was 86 years old and had suffered several mild strokes, which made it difficult for him to remember the details of what had happened. According to the law in Alabama in 1965, had Portwood been arrested after the attack, he could have been tried for murder along with Cook and the Hogles. Bowden, who works at a bail bond company on the same street where she watched the attack more than 50 years ago, admitted to NPR that she lied when testifying in court. So what you say about black people don't deserve reparations? Say that again. I know. Y'all don't know how it could be done, right? I know. Couple other quick stories, then we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to wrap up the show with the Flint water crisis. That is really a joke. Let's stay local here. Let's see. Well, we know many people are calling for the Central Park 5 case to be reopened. The Manhattan DA has decided that he will not reopen the case. He's white, by the way. I know, I point these out on purpose. I want you to get upset. I want you to don't get mad at me, get mad and do something about this bigotry and racism that's going on. That's what you should be doing. A bill to, federally legalize marijuana has been officially introduced. A federal bill would legalize cannabis and regulate it like alcohol was introduced in the Senate this past Friday by Democratic Senator Ron Wyden of Oregon. The bill, the Marijuana Revenue and Regulation Act, has been designated as S-420 by Wyden and is a companion measure to H-420, which was introduced in the House of Representatives by fellow Oregon Democrat Earl Blumenauer. Okay. Don't know if this is going to pass, but it should. By the way, while y'all passing these marijuana bills, everybody that you got in jail that has been convicted of marijuana crimes need to be released. Because right now, white men and white women are making money off of legal marijuana when poor little black boys and black girls who were selling marijuana are sitting in jail rotting. Something ain't right about that. So now because it's legal, it's gone mainstream, it's gone Wall Street, it's cool. But those little black boys and black girls that were out on the street humping just to try to make a living, risking their lives, are now sitting in jail because you all have figured out a way to make money off of it. Isn't America wonderful? Again, black folks did the labor, white folks get the money. So I'm just saying, before you pass any more legislation, I don't know what's all in this bill, I'm going to look into it. But in this bill, you need to be talking about releasing people from jail. In this bill, you ought to be talking about scrubbing their records. Because we've known for some time that marijuana is not bad for you. Now that doctors are saying that it's not, all of a sudden y'all want to make money off of it, but hey, you still want to make money off those black bodies that are in jail. That's wrong, folks. I'm not telling you to go out and start growing pot. If you don't smoke it, don't smoke it. If you don't need it. But see, what we've seen over the last 10, 15 years is our doctors become the number one pushers. Doctors did more to addict America on drugs than any other people. But them doctors ain't going to jail. But poor little black kids that were standing on the corner selling a dime bag, they're going to jail. They've been in jail. But doctors was pushing oxycodone, hydrocodone, Flexeril, Vicodin, all kinds of harmful barbiturates, getting millions of Americans addicted. I'm still fascinated about the 60 Minutes piece where the town in West Virginia, I believe it had 5,000 people in that town, yet there were over 1 million prescriptions for hydrocodone written for that town. Think about that. 5,000 people, yet 1 million prescriptions was written for hydrocodone. These were doctors. Not one of them have spent any time at all in jail. Yet now all of a sudden that marijuana is legal and white people can make money off of legal weed, it's the end thing to do. In fact, the little convenience store around the corner from me is selling CBD oil. What the hell is Easy Mart doing selling CBD oil? Now, anywhere you go in Little Rock, you're seeing signs on these stores, we have CBD oil. It's in vogue. These people are making money off of weed, and black kids are still sitting in jail for selling weed. It's time to let them go. So your boy Biden, by the way, he supports decriminalization, but he doesn't support legalization. Why not? Why not? I will tell you, back in my college days, smoked a lot of pot. You can condemn me if you want, I don't care. I bet there's something in your past. I don't remember ever killing anyone. I don't remember ever getting in my car and running over someone. Hello. But I know people who have drank beer and wine. In fact, a young lady right here in Little Rock a few months ago, y'all remember her? The young, pretty, blonde, 17-year-old girl, I think she was 21. And everybody was talking about how sad it was that she killed herself because she got drunk and drove. Y'all remember that, right? Y'all remember the local media trying to make excuses for her being a drunk driver? Remember she did drive the wrong way on 430 and she plowed into an ambulance, killing herself and wounding the two drivers of the ambulance. Y'all remember that story, right? Weed doesn't do you that way. But alcohol has been legal for decades. See, the only reason you're upset is because, number one, you couldn't tax marijuana. See, if you legalize marijuana, then guess what? I can grow pot in my backyard. You won't get any tax revenue. Part of the reason that you won't let those young black males out is because some of them are in private prisons. And you have written a pact with the private prisons that you want to make sure that you maintain them being 95% occupied. So if you start letting some of those prisoners out who are in there for petty crimes like selling pot, guess what? You can't live up to your agreement with the private prisons. Hello? It's time to let these kids go. 855-525-5683 is the number. That's how you get in touch with me. We've got to go out and take a break. I'm Dynamic Dave. We're winding down the show. When we come back, I want to touch a little bit on this Israel thing, and then we're going to finish the show with this Flint water scandal. It hasn't went away. And now the people that created it, not now one of them going to go to jail. But mamas and daddies are suffering and now have lead in their bodies that will never go away. It's called Black Focus, our issues, our solutions, our voices on joininradio.com.
The law offices of James F. Swindoll provides our clients the personal care and
Any questions
that larger law firms cannot offer. Our experienced attorneys have brought hundreds of cases to verdict in state and federal court and recovered millions for our clients. If you or a loved one have been injured or have property wrongfully damaged, we make
Yep. So here's what that means by 95% occupied. So private prisons, Arkansas doesn't have any private prisons. So if I'm in the prison business, what makes me money is keeping my beds filled. Okay? So think about it from this perspective. I have a 100-bed prison. And for each person, each bed, that's $21,000 a year. You see those numbers? Of course it is. So what they did was they said, hey, we can take the burden off of you and we'll build our own prisons. We'll run them ourselves. You just send them to us. So in that pact, they also said that, look, if we're going to do this, I need you all, state legislators, to guarantee that I get that my beds are always full. So I want a 95% occupancy rate. So that means that at any time I need my beds filled 95% of the time. So if I got 100 beds, 95 of those beds are going to be filled. So how do I do that? Well, I got to pass laws or create laws that's going to make people go to jail. Petty crimes. And let them stack up. So this is what has happened in America. So they're making money off the misery. So you don't have a good lawyer? The white guy gets off because he had a good lawyer for the same crime. But you get 5 years in prison. Because you black and poor and you don't get. So that's why so many of black people are in prison. Because it's not that they committed the crime, that they couldn't afford an attorney. Or a good attorney. Right. Exactly. They're called a public defender. So most of the time they're straight out of law school. They don't know the ins and outs of the court. They're just bad attorneys. They might develop into better attorneys, but that's what they've guaranteed. Hey Perry, what's happening? Yo, mute rider. I see you. You can't hide. I know you could run, but you can't hide. You know, I put the hat on you. Welcome back to the show. It's Black Focus Radio. Shout out to a good friend of mine, Perry Thomas, old college football teammate of mine. That boy was a bad split end back in the day. Thanks for joining the show. 855-525-5683 is the number. I was explaining to the interns about how the prison industrial complex works. You know, someone posted a meme the other day is that if you're going to boycott white businesses, why don't you boycott the prison industrial complex? Whoa. In other words, stop doing things that's going to get you in prison because you know they are set up and designed for you. That's what the 13th Amendment was all about. Have y'all, do y'all have Netflix at home?
Yes, sir.
Did you see 13? You should go and watch it. You like history? Go watch it. Have you all seen When They See Us?
Yeah, I've seen it.
What you think?
It was so bad. I really don't like that, how they tricked them into making them
Confess to a crime that they didn't commit?
I was like, especially the man, his father, he was like, just tell them what they want to know. And I was just like,
That disturbed a lot of people. But you understand the pressure he was under too, right?
yeah.
But there's no way that I would have sold my son out. I'm just gonna let the chips fall where they may. But I'm not selling my son out ever. Ever. Okay. So I want to quickly talk about Israel, and then we're going to wrap up the show on this Flint water crisis. Okay, there's a retired colonel. Israel is dragging the United States into a World War III. Now go out and read this article because I've told you all over and over again, Israel does not have America's best interest at heart. We, for some strange reason, have blindly supported this country who has spied on us, who has killed American soldiers, who have done all kinds of underhanded things to America because of a religious pact that I would argue that does not exist. In fact, I don't have to argue. I have history on my side. We know that the Jews that are in Israel today are not the original Jews based on the Bible. They cannot be. The ones in Israel today are white. The Jews in the Bible are black. The people, the children of Israel was not a nation. It was a people. Don't get mad at me. Do your research. Let me say that again. The children of Israel was not a nation. It was a people. I know that kind of messes you up. But don't get mad at me. Do your research. Then come back and let's debate this thing. But it's kind of ironic that the United States is being led around. It used to be that the United States led, but it's now being led around the world by Israel. And if we're not careful, we're going to be in another war. You know, it's funny. You know, the tanker that they said that was attacked by Iran, the Japanese owner of the tanker said that's not true. Hello? The Japanese owner of the tanker said Iran did not attack those tankers. So why is it? Haven't we got enough of this? Didn't we learn? Did we not learn? Republicans lied us into a war after 9/11. Let me say that again. Republicans lied us into a war after 9/11, and they are about to do it again, and you all are sitting around twiddling your thumbs. Warmonger Tom Cotton was on national TV Sunday talking about the United States. Number one, they were not even our ships. So he claims that the United States has the right to attack anyone if they attack open shipping. Y'all better pay attention. I'm concerned my son's in the Navy. You all have relatives in the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. They lied us into one war. We have a president that is a pathological liar. That's not hyperbole, that's fact. Now, if Republicans lied us into one war, and now we have a president that's a pathological liar, what makes you think that he won't lie us into another war? Because what do liars do? They lie. And it's pretty clear that this president will lie about anything. You don't think he'd lie us into a war? Y'all better wake up. Now, I want to wrap up the show on this Flint water crisis. By now, you all have heard about the Flint water crisis. In fact, they are still in crises. Water, I'm looking at a picture right now, and the water looks like dirt. It's cloudy. In fact, you can see dirt particles floating around in the water. Water that comes out of your hydrant. Back in the day, y'all probably called it hydrant. This is water that people bathe in. Even if you don't drink the water, if you bathe in the water, you understand that your skin absorbs that water, those chemicals that are in that water. Just imagine making baby formula with this water. Think about that. Don't y'all remember? Prosecutors, let me read this article to you. Prosecutors stunningly dropped all criminal charges Thursday against 8 people in the Flint water scandal and pledged to start the investigation from scratch. The defendants include Michigan former health director Nick Lyon, who was charged with involuntary manslaughter. He was accused of failing to timely alert the public about an outbreak of Legionnaire's disease that occurred in 2014-15 when Flint was drawing improperly treated water from the river. So y'all got to understand about this river in Flint. This is where many of the car dealers were, the car manufacturers. So they dumped all kinds of chemicals in that river. The riverbed is flush with chemicals that the car manufacturers dumped into the river. And these people are drinking this water. Y'all know the story. Michigan's Solicitor General, Fadwa Hammond, who took control of the investigation in January after the election of a new attorney general, said all available evidence was not pursued by the previous team of prosecutors. This week, we completed the transfer into our possession millions of documents and hundreds of new electronic devices, significantly expanding the scope of our investigation. They said it is possible that Lyon and others could be charged again. So they've dropped these charges. While waiting on a new pipeline to bring water from Lake Huron, the majority of now here's the killer. Would this happen to a majority white city? The majority black city of 100,000 pulled water from Flint River without treating it to reduce corrosive effects on old pipes. Lead infected the distribution system in Flint, where 41% of the residents are classified by the government as living in poverty. See, these people don't care about poor. See, I tell you poor white folks, they don't care about y'all either. Y'all just like us. Okay? Some experts have linked the water to Legionnaire's disease, a type of pneumonia caused by bacteria that thrive in warm water and infect the lungs. People can get sick if they inhale mist or vapor, typically from cooling systems. Hello? This is pathetic. So I'm hoping by them dropping these charges that they're going to turn around and do a legitimate investigation and charge the rightful people, including the governor at that time. Because they were trying to, they always try to save money on the backs of poor folks, on the backs of black folks. And part of the reason that they do this is because y'all don't vote. Hello? Part of the reason Tom Cotton is in office because y'all black folks don't vote. You young 18-year-olds don't vote. So you can't get upset when they treat you like crap because they know you're not going to vote for them. They know all you're going to do is march, pray, cry, and die. Huh? You ain't gonna do nothing else. You ain't gonna vote. So why should they help you? But I'm hoping you all are paying attention. I'm hoping now that you're beginning to understand. Part of the reason that we talk about white supremacy is because white supremacy is alive and well. It's not going anywhere anytime soon. Y'all do understand that, right? And as a matter of fact, you're beginning to see it more and more and more. And why? Why? Is because of 2042. It's real to them. And they're afraid. They are very afraid. 2042, white people will be the minority in this country. They are afraid that they will be treated the way they treat us. Yeah, I asked a guy, I said, hey, look, if that's the case, doesn't it make sense for you to make sure that the civil rights laws are adequate so that when you all become minorities that you all can live off of civil rights? He didn't get that. No, I'm against them. Okay. I may be old and crumpled in 2042, but I tell you what, my children they're gonna enjoy you all being minorities. That's for sure. We gotta go. I want to thank the interns. They got an earful today. They're gonna be with us for 6 weeks. We got a lot of stuff that we're gonna teach them. We got a lot of stuff, radio and consciousness. It just so happens that both of them they love history. That's their favorite subjects. So they're gonna learn a lot on this show. Their mamas ain't gonna recognize them. They're gonna come home with dashikis on, giving the Black Power sign. You know. That'll be fun. But I'm looking forward to it because y'all know how much I love young people. So I got to get out of here because they're our future, man. I'm going to leave us with this quote that I quoted earlier in the show because I'm telling y'all need to get strapped up. I ain't playing. A student says to his master, you talk about peace, but you teach fighting. How do you reconcile the two? The master replied, it is better to be a warrior in the garden than be a gardener in a war. Y'all think about that. All y'all out there talking about turn the other cheek. Yeah, you can turn it, but you better make sure you turn in to look for your pistol. I'm gone. JC like, oh Lord. I bet you got a pistol, don't you? Yeah. All right. We got to go, folks. I enjoy the show, y'all. We'll see y'all tomorrow. Y'all have a great day. So, once you wrap up, there's still stuff to do. So, remember, I'm recording my show. So I need to make sure that I save it. Now, I record my show. When you get in the radio business, there's a thing called air checks. What I do every day is I go home and I listen to my show. I don't listen to the full show. I listen to bits and pieces. You know, and if there's something that stood out in the show, I'll go back and listen to that. I'm not listening to it